Good evening, I'm Rob Ward, and I'd like to call to order the July 15th, 2024 meeting of the Community Code Enforcement Committee, and it is 6:30 p.m. Start with pledge of allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can we have a all of the committee members?
Cassie Cerrone, present. Nicole Harden, present.
Rob Wilson, present.
Ruby Wood, present.
Shania Strutton, present.
Like we're missing Mr. Harper and Ms. Armstrong.
Dennis said he would try to be here by 6:30.
Okay.
Should be cruising in.
We do have a quorum. Our first item of business is approval of the minutes from the meeting of June 24th, 2024. And we've all done to review them. Does anyone have any amendments that they would? Like to move that we approve the minutes of June 24th, 2024. Discussion from committee members? So, all in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Okay. Our next item is public comment. Is there anyone here who wishes to make a public comment? Okay. Please come up to the podium and give us your name.
Yes.
That in the minutes.
My name is Dana Mayhew.
Dina Ross.
I'm here to complain about property damage from the neighbor that is directly behind me.
On Rainbow.
Rainbow?
What address? Oh, the burnt house.
No, directly behind me.
It's like, it's so-called Rainbow Alley. And
Okay.
it's on the backside of, Valerie.
Is there a street address?
Yeah, Sean has everything about.
Go ahead.
It's water damage and property.
Yeah, water damage and property damage, and it's my house is cracking because they built their house up so high that it's flooding my yard. Their gutters are faced towards my yard,
My yard floods, ducks will go swimming.
which floods my side yard next to my house.
They brought in like 12 loads of gravel on top of what was already put there from two previous owners, Harry. And on top of that, they have a concrete slab, a foundation as well. And then they brought their property all the way up. They have like a 2-fence metal fence or sheet metal going around the bottom of their fence, which would be considered being an 8-foot fence. However, they filled it full of gravel up to the top of that metal
And it just flows like a waterfall into my.
to make it look like it's a 6-foot fence. But in all due respect, they brought it up, their property up and a lot.
Yeah.
Or loads and loads of gravel.
It's hard to move now, hard to shut the bedroom door, and it's cracking inside his room, the door frame, and on the outside.
They had 10-foot posts that are in sand only, not concreted in, which they return tears up their $10,000 fence.
They already did straight down in front of my fence post with about this much space, so now my fence post is like this. Yeah.
No concrete in.
And that's the whole, along the whole backside of my fence.
And on my side as well.
And that's a
So there-
$10,000 fence that was put up.
The property sets way higher than anybody else around them, including West and Langley's and hers and mine. But that's because they brought in like 12, 13 loads of gravel on top of a 6-foot concrete slab with foundation.
And she hasn't done anything about the drainage problem. Her drainage is my yard and her yard.
There's no French drain or anything.
There's not.
Harry didn't put one in when he initially bought it. He just made sure that the land was sloping.
He slowed it down towards the ditch, so it wouldn't flood us out. She built it out there. Now it's just, the drainage is my yard and her side yard, her front yard. And the people's drainage ditch.
Mess.
Okay, it is a mess.
You know, my brain is
We have a trench away from our back, dig a trench for our fence, all the way into the front, because we had 4 inches of water standing on our foundation. And it's cracked the shop floor, which is a brand new shop, it's cracked our walls. And it's that side of the house that's gonna go, because that's the lowest point. That's what my complaint is about.
Lines of
Same
flooding
thing,
in
yeah.
water, yes.
Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
You have pictures as well.
Yeah, she has everything.
Okay.
Anyone else wanted to make a public comment this evening? Okay, I did receive a written public comment. Oh, is there anyone on Zoom?
Nobody.
I did receive a written comment from Mr. Michael Armstrong. I'm going to read that into the record and so that everyone here can hear it. It's titled Successful Newsman Enforcement Process Used 1995 to 2014. Number one, first, the system was in place by City Hall for investigating, documenting evidence, and tracking of complaints for alleged violations, which would lay the foundation for court if necessary. Number two, once a written complaint was received at City Hall, a case number was assigned and a case file started. The city recorder, manager, or city employee would drive by and visit the site of alleged violation. This is where they did their fact finding without contacting the alleged violator. A visual assessment of alleged violation was made from the street or from the complaining party's property with their permission. Photos were taken of visible violations. Number three, armed with these facts, the city recorder manager would first call the owner and seek voluntary compliance, then draft a letter to the owner of record for the property. Letter would clearly detail violations observed and demand immediate action by owner to correct the violations by a given date, usually 2 or 3 weeks, or the case would be referred to the council for action. Number four, should the property owner fail to comply with order to resolve by date specified in letter, the next step would be council hears complaint at next council meeting to determine if nuisance exists. If they determine it did, a motion was made declaring it a nuisance and directing the city recorder manager to refer case to city attorney for action in circuit court. 99% of complaints were resolved at the council meeting. Note, city council heard nuisance complaints as agenda item at next regular council meeting after date to comply. Number five, city attorney would then, per ORS 30.315, proceedings by cities and counties to enforce ordinances and resolutions, take the offender to circuit court per ORS 153.036, venue violation proceeding, to enforce the zoning and nuisance ordinance, force abatement, and recover all costs and fees. The city of Lakeside has successfully prosecuted non-compliant persons 6 times by numerous Lakeside city's attorneys in circuit court. An additional benefit of a docketed judgment in circuit court is that it automatically puts a lien on any real property they own in Coos County, and the city could transfer the judgment if it is found they own real property in another county. This is something our current ordinance does not do. Also, court handles appeals and storing case documents. Previous circuit court cases: 1, 95 CV 1228, 2, 98 CV 0033, 3, 00 NB 1206, 4, 04 CV 0258, 5, 10 CV 0143, 6, 09 CV 0961. Note, city had a judgment of $50,000, which had not been satisfied, and grew to $80,000, which a recent city council forgave. All other cases were satisfied and city recovered all costs and fines. The majority of the enforcement process of nuisance complaints is clerical. It is easier for city attorneys to file cases as filings are e-filings online now. Costs to city are small and recoverable. Note, city councils in the past had a local city attorney who attended meetings. When the city council heard nuisance complaints at a city council meeting as a agenda item, the non-compliant citizen had an opportunity to appear before the council and plead their case, and if they needed time to comply, it was given. If they needed help, they were directed to resources who could help. A vast majority of complaints were resolved. Only the non-compliant faced court action. The majority of cases settled out of court for self-abatement. In the 10 years since the city council stopped hearing nuisance complaints at council meetings, code enforcement has been non-existent by city recorder managers. City council hearing complaints is a straightforward, simple, inexpensive, successful method for code enforcement. Contrast that method with the current complicated method provided in your meeting packets. What does the city council have to lose by going back to the proven successful method of the council hearing nuisance complaints? I mean, that's my comment. End of our public comments. And so next is a review of tasks and follow-up from our previous meetings. The first action item that the committee asked for was a list of chronic violators of health and safety codes. Do we have that
In your packet.
in the packet?
Mhm.
This is the list of complaints, not public violators.
Oh, okay. Like violators. I'm sorry, I didn't understand that.
So it was a misunderstanding. Yeah. So that'll still be on our to-do list.
Okay.
The other thing the committee asked for was they wanted to be provided with the sections of the municipal code that detail what types of things constitute nuisance violations. I did distribute those to the community members. They're not in the packet. It brings that on violation. And for those who are interested, that's section 93 of the municipal code, which is available on the city website. That section of the code lists a number of things that are nuisances that are subject to enforcement, and it also includes the existing enforcement process. New business, first staff report on enforcement issues in process.
So that's the list of complaints, correct?
I would imagine so, but that wasn't in my package.
No, it's here today. That's what I emailed you.
Yeah, sure.
I think what we were thinking is actively pursuing cases, more like we sent letters and now we're at this step with these people. And, right, that's what I was thinking.
That's what we were thinking.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I wasn't,
No,
I
you're
wasn't
good.
here.
No, we still got to that. We're good. But this is, I think, part.
You want data.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
Again, this is our second of 2 meetings, so we'll get it ironed out over
Okay.
time.
Sure.
That's what we were.
Okay, so data.
Okay, the second item of new business, which is in the package for sure, is a review of a draft of code enforcement process. I took it upon myself to write this up because at our last meeting, there seemed to be a lot of confusion of what is the process. Some parts of the process are found within existing local codes and a new ordinance that hasn't taken effect yet. Some parts of it are maybe common sense, maybe not. And then there were some things I put in there in italics as items that this committee might want to have some input on. And so the first step of the process is reporting. That's when the city finds out there is a potential violation that needs to be worked up.
When you say the city finds out, does that mean a form is filled out and turned in?
Well, so what I wrote here, for those who are not familiar with it, that the potential violation becomes known to city staff tasked with enforcement, may be citizen complaint or reporting by staff. So somehow they find out. So by any means, there's a violation that's potentially actionable.
I just wondered if this was to be the first of the paper trail.
That was my bad.
Well, I would think reporting would be where you start your paper trail. So if it's a citizen's complaint, that's the first piece of the paper trail. If it's staff were driving by and noticed something, if they put something in writing, then that's the beginning of the paper trail. So once something gets known, the second step is to create a log of the instrument, and we have no idea yet what would be in those logs. Right, so one of the things I put in italics here was what information would the committee want to have on the log in order to monitor progress? And that's not just how is this particular violation being worked up, handled, settled, resolved, that sort of thing. It's also what kind of information would committee members want to see to enhance their recommendations on amending the process in the future. You don't know if your enforcement process is working unless you collect information on it. You know, and what kind of information would you want? I'm not expecting everyone has an answer for that, but it's something to think about. I don't know if anybody has suggestions.
For the actual log itself.
Yeah.
So that could be a whole item for us to do.
Sure.
Just creating a log in itself, and maybe we could have city staff kind of mock up something that would work for them and present it to us.
And I would anticipate that city staff would be involved in that
Mhm.
as we discuss it, you know, and as you say, that could be a whole workshop session all by itself.
Yeah, definitely.
May I?
Yes, by all means.
You don't need to spend a lot of time on reinventing the wheel. There's a lot of resources out there, a lot of cities with, especially being in the managers association. It's as simple as, asking and somebody will hand over a copy of what they do when they still keep paper. A lot of the stuff is tracked by software in larger cities.
Mhm.
So people that are still doing paper, all we need to do is just get a log and then you can take your workshop and maybe do something else. I don't,
Yeah, it's a great idea.
And one of the other things I had in italics under that log was time frame from time of reporting, so. Excuse me. Do you want to set a target for how long after a violation is reported should go by before it's entered into the law? I mean, that's kind of tiny details, but if that's something that's interesting.
I'm not interested.
Sure, so do you want to provide staff with a goal on supposing a violation is reported today? How long should they have before they log it, like?
Officially.
Yeah, so it has to be something that's reasonable for resolving things, and it also has to be something that recognizes that city staff are doing more than just enforcing code violations. Yeah.
so my practice for records request is when the records request is received, it automatically goes into the log. So that would be the practice for code enforcement, is to receive the complaint and automatically log it. I don't know that you need a time frame unless there's an issue.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Kind of thing I was hoping we'd hear. Okay, the third item on the process was city staff tasked with enforcement makes a determination as to whether there is sufficient evidence to establish that a violation has occurred. So that is a reasonable step in any process of this type. Someone's filed a complaint or someone's seen something. Somebody has to go look and see, did this really happen? Is there evidence of something that can be enforced? And under that in italics, I've wondered what should be the time frame from reporting for that. So someone makes a complaint to the city or city staff noticed something. How long between that reporting and the time that someone goes out to collect evidence?
I would say for these timeframes, like she said, as long as we see that things are getting moved along, I don't know if we need to like have a specific timeframe.
Okay.
Oh, and I don't want to paint ourselves into a corner where it like had to be 48 hours, but it was 4th of July and now the time, let's.
Sure, I can understand that too. On the other side of it, sometimes, and I'm not casting any aspersions about our current staff, but sometimes in a multitasking staff situation, things will float indefinitely. That's not the top of the list. So if there isn't a deadline, it doesn't get dealt with.
7 days. Oh, and what about within 7 days, like within a week, is that reasonable?
And I don't even know if the committee wants to talk about that. I just put it out there. Okay, and then if there's insufficient evidence of a violation, the process is over. If you can't establish there was a violation, there's nothing to enforce. And then my next question is if this was initiated by a citizen complaint, do we then expect that there's going to be some report back to the person who filed the complaint that says, we looked into this, we can't find enough evidence, we're closing it now? Yes.
In other cities, their complaint process is if the person checks back in, then you can issue a letter or an update. But if they don't check back in, then we don't do unneeded work. But you still keep a log and your reporting and you close out the system for the file.
Is there any onus on the person bringing the complaint to provide anything like pictures or some other proof that, I mean, is that something that normally happens or could happen? That, you know, I come in and, like the ladies with the problem with the drainage, I come in and here's a picture of, you know. is
I would
there-
like to see, you know, if someone complains, I would like to see as much evidence as they have documented themselves.
Definitely helps enforce the process, and it's probably strongly encouraged to provide.
Multiple.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, the more information that we have.
So if the person that's bringing in the complaint has some sort of proof themselves to bring in, that would be helpful.
As much as.
Can that be put down somewhere in what they get? Because I've looked at the complaint forms and it doesn't say anything, so.
Most recent version of the complaint form I've looked at requests that the complainant provide whatever evidence they have.
I want to get a new complaint form.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Is there maybe an email address we could put on that for if they have like videos or something they want to digitally send in, a specific,
They'll probably just send it to the
just
city
city
manager.
manager?
Speaking about internet, it would be really nice if we had a spot online on our website where people could do this without having to come in and bring their phone, and they could just issue the complaint online, and then I don't know how that goes to Sean's or my email.
Yeah. Definitely. I don't, it's not possible with the current website, something to look into, yeah. Okay.
And then if there is sufficient evidence, then staff collects and documents that evidence and continues on with the process. And then under our own code, if the staff that's doing the code enforcement, someone other than the city recorder or manager, then the city recorder manager must review it and agree that a violation has occurred. The next step was staff assesses immediacy of violation. And the reason for that is because depending on how severe it is or how much of a threat it is, dictates what happens next. So if a violation unmistakably exists and which immediately endangers human life or property, then city staff can elect to go directly to abatement without any notice or other preliminary process. And abatement is where the city goes out and fixes the problem and then recovers the costs of that from the property owner or other responsible parties.
And how is that decision made?
That decision's made by city staff. Again, that's out of what is going to be our local code. It's written in
The
there.
health and safety, that's the health and safety that we discussed last time.
Right.
Yeah.
So yeah, if it's an imminent threat, then there's not this process of letters, it's go fix it. City staff tasked with code enforcement can skip the order to comply and go straight to notice of failure to comply if it reasonably appears that the violation is either an immediate threat to public health, safety, or welfare, or it's immediately remediable by the person in charge of the property. In other words, they can easily fix it right now. Or if it's a repeat offense, or if it's done deliberately by someone who knew better. And so there's two things mentioned there. One is the order to comply, and the other is notice of failure to comply. So the order to comply is a letter that goes out and details the violations that have been alleged on the person's property. and gives them a period of time to fix it. And then if that date has come and gone and they haven't fixed it, then the next thing that goes out is a notice of failure to comply, and that's when fines start accruing.
I have a question. Done deliberately by someone who knew better. What defines someone who knew better?
That's a good question. That's good.
Yeah, if they got the previous letter and then it, for instance, and then they fixed it.
Can I
and
make
it-
a comment on that?
and then went back.
That's perfect. Yes.
And that's up to Rob, sorry.
Better.
I think the more public input, the better.
Mark Crouch, citizen of Lakeside. Somebody who'd know better is if they filled out a conditional use permit before and they didn't fill one out a second time, that'd be a perfect example.
I should run for mayor.
I second.
You know, I know about mayors.
Another example might be if someone had come to City Hall, if they could find out if they could do a certain thing on their property. And they were told that either they couldn't or they needed some kind of permit first, and then they decided, I'm just gonna go ahead and do it.
Well, that's called Lakeside. That's the majority of it.
So the comment is that's the majority of Lakeside. No, it's not, it just seems that.
I would think maybe somebody that was a repeat offender, they've already been told they can't do this, maybe it's already been taken care of when they do it again.
Yeah, that's a repeat offense was listed separate.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, somebody didn't know this better.
yeah.
Ignorance of the law being no excuse.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, sorry.
I think if you give some latitude for people, some people, even paying their sewer, have been in the hospital, have, conditions that may not normally be present for this person, that are now in situations, and you kind of give a little latitude based off of their individual situations instead of having a very rigid approach to a one size fits all may work here.
We've talked about
Okay.
Like a compassionate consideration.
Correct.
Yeah.
the,
Yeah, absolutely.
the point of code enforcement is to get them to comply,
Right.
not find people everywhere. So definitely whatever we can do to help with that, yeah.
So if we move along, I think you'll see some of that collective approaches built into it. If the staff is going to be sending notices, they have to do some research first. So they have to come up with the legal description of the property. They have to identify the owner of record and other persons who might be responsible. And they have to be able to specify which code sections are being violated. And that takes some time. Once they've done the research, their next step is to prepare whatever notice they're going to send out. And the first one would be an order to comply. And the order to comply is optional under the code that's about to go into effect. Staff may elect to attempt compliance through informal communication with the responsible persons. So if city staff want to, instead of starting out with written notices, they can contact the person by phone or by visiting the property or by whatever means they like and talk to them about the issues and see if they can resolve it that way. On the other hand, if the problem is an immediate threat to public health or safety, the staff can decide not to issue an order to comply, and they can go straight to, notice of failure to comply, or if it's serious enough, they can go straight to abatement. The order to comply is required to have specific content, and that's described in our code. And included in that content is a deadline for compliance that has to be at least 10 days after the order to comply is sent, but it can be longer. So that's another place where there's some wiggle room to work with people. And the order to comply can contain other content that says, there's a best practice, such as the plain language version of parts of the code, when there are responsible persons other than the owner of record. So, if the person who's engaged in the violation is not the property owner, but is a property occupant or a renter or some other similar situation, then that person that's controlling the property is responsible, and the owner is too. They're both responsible. So step 7 is after the order has been put together. It gets posted on the property, it gets mailed to the owner, and it gets mailed to responsible parties other than the owner. And so in those orders to comply, there's a deadline to bring the property into compliance. And after that deadline is passed, somebody has to figure out, was it fixed or not? So there's a reassessment step, and someone has to go back out to the property and see that the problem's been fixed. If the problem's been fixed, then the enforcement process is over. And I'm wondering, do we send, when a issue is closed like that, do we then send notice out to the responsible parties to say, thank you for fixing the problem, we're done now?
I think no news is good news.
If I was the one who had been reported and who had fixed the problem, I myself would like a letter from the city saying, you've taken care of your part of the problem, so that I would have that for proof in the future in case somebody said you didn't fix it.
That's a good point. Mhm.
And also get rid of that anxiety of, am I in the clear, am I
Yes,
not?
exactly.
So then the question is between us and staff is whether notice like that should be a regular part of the process, or should that be something that you wait until the person requests it?
I'd make it a matter of course, because then you don't have any doubt about whether this person got one or not. Everybody gets one. I mean, otherwise some get it and some don't. That's just my way of thinking.
I'm kind of thinking of like a face sheet that has this checklist that you go through, just kind of like planning or whatever, that you have
Me too.
everything that is checked off, and all of these letters can be copy, paste, insert new address, and it could be fairly quick. So closing out a letter, will be easy. And like you said, everyone will have proof that they completed their request.
And that way we don't have to wonder, did we send this person a letter? Did we? Because it'll be just something that's
Yes.
done, part of the process.
And also in your log, though, you will have closed out. There should be a close date where the process is complete. So as you're tracking it, the process is complete, but for closure for the citizen.
Yes. Mhm.
Okay, and similar question, but for the person who made the initiating complaint. If the person has now corrected the problem and city's acknowledged that it's corrected, do you notify that party as well, or do you wait for them to ask?
I guess that's up to you. I just think if they check back, if they call it or something like that, if we keep sending out a lot of letters, I don't know how much
Yeah. I
time,
mean, every letter is additional cost.
right?
Yeah.
But
Well, whomever you send the letter out to get the order to comply, should be the person getting a notice of closures.
I
That's what
think
we've
you
been
just
doing.
have the same process for everyone. For me, waiting for people to call in and interrupt my day and say, hey, this is Joe, and I want to know if that situation, that's more disruptive than just saying, we always send a letter. We know our process, so we can guarantee you if it was closed out, you received a letter.
And hopefully if there's a complaint in person, that problem's been resolved and you know that.
how much anonymity are we giving the people with the offender?
I don't think we finished.
We haven't, we have opened a discussion about that.
So I think that's kind of where that letter to the complainant comes in. Yes, we take your complaint, but kind of like when you report something to the police officer doesn't call you back or send you a letter saying, hey, yeah, we nabbed the guy. So there's a little bit of an issue with discretion.
Yeah, I don't think we should send a letter to the complainant, just the people who are getting the order to comply.
I agree.
Yeah, and every time.
Yes.
And then, so next is the inverse is the person hasn't complied and staff have gone out and they found evidence of non-compliance. Then they need to document their evidence of non-compliance and then move on to notice of failure to comply.
Are we allowed to ask questions?
Sure. Well, yes.
So, or make a comment, just quickly. You say not to send it out to the people that made the complaint, like us. I mean, we don't want to bother you and call you up and say they get taken care of.
And so the observation from a member of our audience was that if we sent notice to them that something had been resolved, then they don't have to worry about bothering us, getting that information. Go ahead.
If you noticed the offense, then you would notice then it was taken care of, correct?
Well, if I got on a ladder, and if
Yeah.
it wasn't raining, I wouldn't know. If it
We
wasn't
wouldn't
raining.
know. Unless it was pouring down rain, you wouldn't know.
So it only happens when it's raining. When it's dry, it's okay. It's
Well,
okay.
yeah.
Mostly.
It's not flooding then.
It's not flooding there, but it's not okay because, I mean,
Again, I'm just gonna go on record here. I believe that we should send a letter to every person that has been involved in the process.
yeah, I
And
just,
just say, it's been handled, it's over with. I think, we're getting information and evidence. These people should then be informed. This case is closed.
yes.
That's my.
Okay. Unless they wish to remain anonymous.
Right.
The next step is number 9, staff prepares notice of failure to comply. And I've referenced our local code there. That notice has to contain specific content that's listed out in our code. And it also has to contain a description of our appeals process, which is also spelled out in the code. And then that second notice has to be posted on the property, mailed to the owner, and mailed to other responsible parties. After that second notice goes out, that's when fines start accruing. The person responsible has up to 14 days from the date of that notice to appeal with the city manager. The appeal has to be written. And if there's no appeal filed, then the establishment of the violation is finalized. There's no need for any kind of hearing, and staff can move forward with either abatement or collection. If an appeal is filed, then the city manager forwards that appeal to a hearings officer.
That was one of the notes that I had from last time, that we had an okay to hire a hearing officer. Has that, progressed?
I don't know if you have an okay. Or,
The clarification is that the city won't be hiring a hearings officer, they'll be contracting one, which is.
Okay, yeah, I understand the difference.
I know we're searching for one. Have we made any progress on that?
Not since the council meeting.
Okay. We have some ideas where to find one. Okay, if this goes to a hearings officer, then there is a hearing. The hearings officer has to conduct that hearing within 45 days of receiving the appeal. And then after that hearing takes place, hearings officer has 15 days to issue a determination, and that's where they explain, yes, this person is a violator and should be fined, or no, this person is not a violator and you should leave it alone. The hearings officer can order fines, or they can order abatement by the city at the expense of the person responsible. Okay, number 13 is abatement by the city, and the city manager has to obtain or document the legal basis for entry to the property, and that's in our code. And it says that they have to obtain permission from the property owner or a warrant from a circuit court judge. But they may enter without permission or warrant if there's a nuisance to public health or safety that's been established. Again, abatement is where the city fixes the problem and then recovers the cost from the responsible party. 14, collection of fines or enforcement costs. The accrued costs to the responsible parties include fines, abatement costs by the city, and administrative costs. And those administrative costs are defined in the code. Staff sends notice of the cost to the responsible party. That's basically you owe us this much money, pay up in so much time. Yeah.
if they decide not to pay the fines, then a lien is placed? Or do we send it to a collections place?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So
You want me to?
step
Well,
14, step 14 is to send them notice of the costs that they owe. And then under our codes, that person has 10 days to either pay it or file a written objection.
So if
And then
they,
you can place a lien after that.
so if they owe $100 or $500, we're cleansing liens for that little amount.
I don't know. Mr. Crouch?
I'm gonna get my exercise tonight. So Mark Crouch, Mayor. We talked to Gary, our lawyer or attorney on this. Basically, what he was saying is you can start the liens anytime you want. It's on the property. As far as a collection agency coming in and putting it on it, that won't necessarily work unless we have a defined fee system. And more so than what we're actually finding on the property, but we're actually finding the individual. And how we both understood?
Right, and I think that he said the longer you put out the collection on the person, the better for the collection agency to be able to try and recover that unless you are really just wanting to go to lien the property.
Yeah, because collection agencies typically don't go with small amounts. They need some deep make their profits and stuff
Mhm.
like that.
So what you're saying is we could do a collection agency, but it needs to be a kind of, what, is there like a minimum amount or anything like that?
Probably 100.
100, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it would have to be fairly substantial.
Is there a
And,
cost for that?
did the collection agency ever get back to us on that? When she came in? Remember she came in for collecting sewer?
Western Mercantile.
Yeah, I don't think they did. I don't think she got back to us. Because we asked her if she would be willing to collect on, on nuisance, and then she had to go and check to make sure that they could actually legally do that.
Right.
Is there a cost incurred to the city for that service?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
But
Was-
then again, there could be a split or something like that, so don't.
Was
you know.
that Michelle from Western Mercantile that you were talking to?
Trish. Trish?
Okay.
Generally, I think they keep a percentage.
Yeah.
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 And so that would be the cost to the city.
So it was, we kind of had to push her out of the office really quick so we can really have a very in-depth discussion with her. But there is that possibility out there.
I would just suggest that in your fee schedule that you allow for all of these additional, it has to go to collections, how many days after collections, you keep adding the fees to recover the cost of the collection.
Yeah, with any type of abatement or any type of effort, any effort the city puts into it, we can recoup those costs.
So that, just a reminder, that is the goal of this whole process. It's not to impose fines and collect them. It's to achieve compliance
Correct, right,
and
Yeah.
then recover anything it costs you to
right.
achieve compliance.
And to just find somebody and leave it sit there for 5 or 6 years is not achieving our goal. It's just, well, as you heard in the last meeting, upsetting our citizens going, in 5 years, nothing's happened. You know, that's never been done. Anyway, that's what I've heard so far.
Without the fee schedule, then those additions have to be, posted in the ordinance.
I'm not sure what's meant by a fee schedule because the ordinance sets out define fines for violation. And it sets out what the administrative fees are. So I'm not really sure what you mean by a fee schedule, other than what's in the code.
I don't know if you can adopt anything on top of what you already have to recover collection costs. If you have if you split a percentage, a 30-70 split, you're gonna lose your 70% that it cost us. You're losing money every time you're turning over code enforcement collections.
So, that's a real concern when you're trying to recover actual costs. Not so much with fines, but.
Right.
Thanks for your input on this draft. And you had mentioned that you wanted to have a procedural checklist, right? And I'm only viewing this as like guideposts or putting that.
Right.
So what would you all like to see happen next with this?
Well, I believe I at least chicken scratched out a few things that we could take out for next time. And I think getting a good log in place is, that will be important. We'll see what we need to do about the fee schedule. That she's talking about. But I think as far as this goes, this is great. Thank you all for putting us together.
Rob, could I?
Come on.
I'm going to share it. In regards to the log, I think it might be whenever you get the complaint in, assign it a number so that it's anonymous. So you don't see all the, you know, the addresses. That's what things, you know, it's like police report, it's a number. And then if you do it online, if you have kind of the log online, you can actually go eventually. You could go onto the website and I put in a complaint. It's assigned a certain number, and when I give you the complaint, you give me what that number is going to be. And I can then go on the website and see the progress. Because as things are being done, you'll see check marks or it's been closed. So, and then you can get the letter too. But that way I can actually see the progress of everything that's going on. And using the steps that Rob has put out, you can actually make a log for everything. But again, have it anonymous. I do have some issues with number 4. And that's the one where there's unmistakably existing imminent endangered and continued right of property that we give staff the complete power to do that without you guys making a decision. I have a little problem. You know, the city council.
So if it's an immediate threat to public health, safety, or welfare.
You better have it very, very specific as to what those immediate, you know, things are. You know, and again, it's just me. I just have a little issue there, you know. So, but using your things as a guideline, you can make a fairly decent law. But historically, probably around 10 years ago, the city council had a thing that they wanted to start fining. And what the city council did at that time is they fined the person who, you know, had the issue $900 a day to a maximum of $5,000. So that was 6 days. That's less than a week, you know. And so the reality is nothing was done. So historically, that kind of what has happened, you know, with the city, you know, the city council in the past in regards to some fines. So if you're going to have a fee, if you're going to, and again, I agree that the 99% of these things are never going to go that far, but there still are going to be some that are saying, I don't care. Because the reality is that we had a person who had a $50,000 lien on his house. It's only good for 10 years and it was never renewed. And it was, you know, so, and the problem's still there. So if you want this to have some bite, make it hurt, you know. Thank you.
I do know that the fee schedule that has been discussed by the council is nowhere near $900 a day. I'll just tell you that much. But it does definitely ramp up so that it gets to be a painful thing. Again, what we want is for folks to be able to fix these things, and you know, the attempt is not to bankrupt. But in terms of your question about the website being able to go online, realistically, how far away are we from a functioning city website that would even be able to include something like that? Because we're not even a functioning city website as it is.
That's a whole software thing in itself.
I know it is. I'm married to a computer guy, so that's why I'm asking, how far out is that process? I love that idea, and I think that is where we want to go, but realistically, is that anywhere in our near future?
I don't really know how to answer your question. The website is not under our control. With enough money, it could be tomorrow, but we don't have that luxury. So I think having all of these in place is really the most important so that we can start doing things as it evolves. Maybe we take some of that money and, develop a portion of the website and have it as a goal. Rome wasn't built in a day. The website does need some things, but that is not our control. So I don't know if you want a whole separate thing just for code enforcement so that it tracks like the Linda was saying. Maybe that's something, maybe I don't know what's out there, but I can go do some homework. Everybody else can do homework if about the
All right, so at
software.
that time, what is the process then? She calls up with this number and someone gives her where we're at? What is the process if someone is trying to check on it? I'm just not aware of it. Is there a process?
Come in, call.
Okay, email?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, I have been drinking from a fire hose, so I am,
We all have. I know,
I don't know.
I don't know the process, so I just wondered if someone does, if they would call the city.
as we go along, what I have been implementing is what has been being done, and let's do it correctly. So
Right.
changing processes in the past to then do best practices. So whatever this process is right now, you're just trying to go forward with it instead of like looking back at.
Right.
Yeah, there's no defined process at this time. It's essentially has been off the cuff by every city manager we've had. So
What I
that
would
is
really,
the state we're at. That's why you guys are here.
Yeah. Thank you.
what I would really like to see, we're making all these rules for what we're gonna do and how we're gonna go forth, and I think that's important. What I would like to see before another meeting, or at least before another 2 meetings, pick one case to start with and work through it according to the rules that we're making, see what works and what doesn't work, and just take that one thing as a test case for what we're gonna do and how we're gonna do it. So that, because we can discuss it a lot, but if we can actually put one complaint, I don't care if we pick it out of a grab bag or whatever, pick one thing that needs to be done and get to work on it right away. For one thing, we can show the people that are watching that we're not just gonna be talking about it forever. And another thing, it will help us to sort of go along and say, okay, this isn't working, and then correct what we're doing with an actual case. Does that make sense?
I don't know if legally we can open up a case and sit up here and say, look at all these pictures of this person's house and where are we at? It would be nice because then people would get to see what is being done, but I don't know the legalities of
We
that.
give you the right on our end.
Yeah, it's just,
Going forward, I will have a lot more information and be able to give you more input than I am right now. I've done code enforcement, so I feel like I have some of that test cases that, if you will, that you're probably looking for. So having some input from administration, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We want to avoid
Exactly, yeah.
reinventing the wheel. But also possibly for your next task, if you're going to contract or if you're going to hire, we need to have a job description that we put out so that we can then either
For the hearings officer?
for the hearings officer, RFP, or what it is that what you're looking at.
We're not hiring.
You're not hiring one.
No, they're contractor.
Right, right. But we still have to put it out for bid.
Yeah.
Okay, so to put it out there, we can't do anything until we have that in place, so
are these the job descriptions that you recommend?
Samples that I got from the Managers Association, yes.
So it has not been put out for bid yet, as of yet.
No, nothing is approved. It's just to give you a sample of what what the sample agreement looks like, how much they're paying in Baker, I think it was. Oh, sorry, Powers. 250 to 300 per court session. But that was a municipal judge. That's all that they had. I was just trying to give you other stuff to look at.
We're done discussing. Next on our agenda is old business, and we have none. And the next item after that is asks for future meetings.
I can go first. I think we all agree that a log would be a good pass. One thing when I talked about with the city manager, when I wanted to meet with her was education. For our new ordinance that's being passed, and she recommended putting copies of that or some sort of education in with the sewer payments. You know, someone comes in to pay their sewer, it's there for them, you know, which I thought was a good idea. It wouldn't hurt to get the word out about that. The ordinance or, you know, things they need to know to follow, different things like that, yeah. We can even,
So how to file a complaint?
no, just for people, like, pretty much we would just put out a copy of the ordinance so people know, oh, I can't have a dog barking all the time.
Oh, the ordinance.
Yeah, it's something like that.
Sort of setting an expectation, a good education campaign before you start trying to impose fines and look like the bad guy, that you're really trying to help people do the right thing and get them. Having a resource list of places to call, of where to, call somebody for scrap metal or the dump, or a lot of education and resources so that they can help themselves before we spend a lot of time doing things, writing letters and opening cases.
Yeah, I thought that would be a good idea to start doing. I wouldn't even mind helping compile a list of resources to put out. Be easy to type up a little thing for that. Yeah. Okay.
So where can we find the nuisance ordinance?
Right now, you get a copy of it from the city manager, the city clerk, they can print one off from you. We still haven't passed the newest one because we're waiting for planning commission, right?
No, that was the thing we're waiting for planning commission on is a change that would allow people who violate the land use code to be processed under the same
Okay,
procedures.
yeah.
And licenses.
So.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's another thing is our code book is really. Out of date, but they can request a copy from you, correct? Yeah.
You can go on the website and it will have the municipal code and just download that, and then it's section 93 and it will have the most current.
No. You can download section 93 from the website. It's
What did you
not
put on?
current.
No, the whole municipal code. Download the whole municipal.
Section 93 is not current on the website.
Not current?
The changes that the council just passed that were supposed to go into effect, I believe, July 14th. Not,
Yeah.
to the best of my knowledge, have not been published into the code book yet.
No.
And it's still not reflected on the website.
That's more of the administrative stuff. If you're looking for the actual.
I'm just saying so that if someone who's listening tonight goes to the website and downloads the municipal code, section 93 is not current yet.
I guess we'll put the list of chronic violators back on a task.
I have a question about that. Is that names or is that data?
Let's data, I think what we talked about last meeting was just street name. To kind of, so it's not spelled address or like Linda was saying, a case number, I think.
Yeah, give it an anonymized number. I guess we'd be interested in what the nature of the problem is.
Yeah. And the status of it,
Right.
like, have we sent out a letter? Have we? Where are we on it? Kind of is what we're saying. Kind of the people, the open pieces, I guess is a better way to put it.
The wins of ours get addressed.
As
Well, you just put in a complaint with the city staff, right?
Not just,
Couple weeks ago.
right,
Okay. So
So it
there
needs
has
to be
to be
assigned a
some
number.
fact finding.
So
by the
assign us a
staff
number
and-
yeah. You can use us.
so that's part of the where we at on the open pieces part, and where we're going. There's dates and deadlines for those types of things. So.
They-
Ones that
they're-
are current-
I'm
the ones that are currently in don't have.
Yes, they do.
Yeah, so something like that, back and you give numbers to all the ones that are in process now.
So what happened was my predecessor was creating a Word document. And at the same time, there was a spreadsheet that was started. So as you see, I closed out the column with the contact information and the addresses. You can see that they have a number that is addressed, yeah, but the ones going down were just literally put in today. So they don't have a number. They're coming from a Word document. So it's gonna take a little bit for us to kind of organize this but we will keep it a working, living, breathing document.
One thing I just wanted to say is that the committee up here is created to keep city staff accountable and also to just make sure everything's going along, because for so long we said, do this, and then no one's checking up to make sure it's done. So that's kind of what we're all up here doing, is just making sure things move along.
And really assisting.
Yes, in any way we can.
Have faith, everybody up here really wants to do the best that we can.
Oh, I do.
To move things
Well, I
along.
believe
And
that.
I'm glad to see new faces.
Any other tasks for future meetings?
Sorry, so we talked about the list, and then we all saying this list is gonna, this land, are we going to create the list? Does one of us want to create the list?
Do a workshop.
We can do a workshop for that.
That's what it is.
We're talking about the actual check mark, what you were,
She was saying she should get something.
Well, that's a good idea.
Another
Maybe that
city.
would help you guys. I know you've got a lot of stuff to do. If we were to do a workshop
To get things organized.
that would help,
Yes.
that would help you, or would that just mess up what you're trying to do?
All I was suggesting was that we have one so that we can track the case. It
Sure.
doesn't, I mean, it's no big deal to make a face sheet.
She was saying other cities have them readily available, right?
That the incident log, yes. The log,
Yeah.
the face sheet is no big deal. I mean, we can even create an incident log, but if you would like, I will get one from another city so we can see what everybody else is doing, how much, because it will show how much time you have in between letters that you're sending out so that you're making sure that you're tracking the cases.
So we will then have this for the next meeting?
I will get it.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you.
So what about us? Do we have tasks for next time?
Nikki and I are gonna work on that list of resources.
Okay.
As far as organizing like properties and stuff, is that something that we just have a workshop on to get things up her plate so much, where we can get the list of what's going on and be able to organize that list of complaints, or is that something?
When we met last time, we went through the objectives for the committee. And so unless it falls
Okay.
into one of those, I
Yeah.
don't think it does.
I missed the meeting last time, sorry.
One of the hard parts about sitting up here is we want to do a lot more than we're allowed to do. So that was why
Wave a magic wand. to make everything okay.
I had that problem when I started being on city council. It's like, what can I do? I will, and it's like, yeah, I can't do a lot of things, so.
Well, the heading tasks for future meetings raises another question that's on the agenda, which is when are we having? But is that what your hand was up for?
For work sessions, do you think it would be helpful to have a work session before another formal meeting?
Yes.
What would be that work session? The topic of it.
I think it would be going through the examples that we're talking about having and looking at those and saying, yes, that's a great idea. That works for us. No, that not so much.
Sounds good.
I personally think we could meet every other week and still have way more than we can handle. You know, waiting until every month, it just makes me nervous, but obviously I'm not on council and the mayor and the have other things going, so I'm willing to meet as often as we need.
I say for the first couple months, we can at least. We have a lot to do.
I can do that. Yeah.
Can we put that in a repeating format, something like the first and third Monday of every month?
Yeah, that would be good. It's 2 weeks from now.
I think those are clear on the calendar.
Yeah. Be the 29th would be the next one. Would you like to do that?
I did say the first and third.
Oh, sorry, I was thinking 2 weeks from now. Yeah. So it would be the 5th of August.
So these are gonna be work.
That's in 3 weeks from today.
Well, you can set a meeting calendar and say, we're going to meet this often. And then you can, as you set your agendas for those meetings, you can say, this is a workshop session. This is a meeting. It's roughly how this is.
So it's not needed at a tavern someplace and have a beer, because it's, you know.
You know, we could do that if everyone was invited and we had Zoom.
This is my first stint on a committee like this, then this is a formal meeting. And then if you have a workshop, then what's the difference between this and a workshop? If it's still televised and the public comes.
Instead of following this stepwise agenda like we've been doing tonight,
Right,
it's more of, and you don't vote on anything either.
okay,
It's you, in a more free form way, work through a product. And
okay,
it's more of a free for all.
good to know.
Yeah, but you don't make any formal decisions.
So just looking forward to September, that first Monday is Labor Day. So do we want to move it that month, or are we not looking that far ahead? I'm a planner. So I'm kind of happy in December. So I'm just looking forward to September, and that's the first Monday.
So right now, we're doing August 5th, right? And
Yeah.
what else in August?
The 19th, I will be in Hawaii.
The 19th, I'm getting operated on. So.
No excuses.
Well, I don't think we want to.
Springfield,
How
no,
about we just kind of go one meeting at a time? We don't need to schedule them out so far in advance. We'll just do our next one. Once we get through that, we're going into holidays and all that fun stuff. So.
Panic.
Yeah.
Shift to a day of the week other than Mondays and Fridays.
Yeah.
But that's really.
Yeah. 6:30, okay?
August 5th, 6:30.
And this is a work session, correct?
I think so. Right. Next is committee member comments.
Well, I just want to say, I appreciate the city of Lakeside, the mayor appointing me to this committee. A lot of people talk about serving on the council, being on committees as it's going to be so painful. No, being a part of the process is not painful. It's helping the community come to a solution. And so for me, I love being part of this community. I think city government is a bunch of you, me, and the guy down the street. It's not they over there need to fix this. It's we need to work together. So I feel like we are on the right path to doing this, and I'm happy to see it hopefully move forward. Thank you.
So I've been in Lakeside for most of my life, with the goal thinking that eventually, once I buy a house in the city, then I'll be able to help the community. So it's when this committee came up and I was asked to apply for it, I was really excited because it's a really good time for me to be able to do it. And I'm looking forward to being able to help clean up our community.
Yes. I just want to thank all of you for coming out and participating tonight. Yep. Hope you share our level of enthusiasm.
It's fun stuff. One thing I meant to bring up, kind of forgot. I talked with the city, I brought this up at city council too. I talked with the city manager about the person out there on the streets doing these things, the motorhomes that are parked in the street that you go tag. No one in our city feels comfortable doing that job, and that's a problem. Well, it has to be an employee of the city.
I've offered
I know
it
lots of
years.
citizens, I know lots of citizens that wouldn't mind doing that, but fortunately, they have to be, insured and stuff, but
We did have a volunteer who would like to do that job, and you can put volunteers on insurance.
yeah, I know a long line of
Yeah.
volunteers then, well, that'd be great.
Yeah.
So will that be up to council for putting them on the insurance and adding them, or, oh, you get to hire them?
So we would have to put it out that that's what we're hiring for as a volunteer. Take those applications, choose somebody, and then put them on insurance.
And find where the money comes from.
For volunteers,
For
For
the insurance.
Paying for the
For the
insurance,
insurance?
yeah,
I don't think in the grand scheme of it, it's really all that much.
okay, good deal. Cool, well, that's great news, fantastic, okay. Other than that, I feel like, it's kind of, my dad gets really frustrated watching us up here talk and do these things, but these are really important things to make sure that everything is being done right and will be done. So I know it's tedious and we all want to see action, and it is gonna happen for sure. So, yeah, thank you guys.
I may be behind the curve here, but so may be some of the people who are watching on Zoom. I don't know if everybody, I do not know your names or exactly what positions that you have, and I'll bet the Zoom people don't all know either. Would you mind giving me that information?
I'm Krista Miller, the city,
Krista Miller?
Krista Miller, city manager recorder. This is Sean Warren,
Thank you.
city clerk.
Excellent, thank you. I figured out what you were, but I just didn't have a name to put with your face, so thank you very much for being so on top of things.
You're welcome.
Is it Krista?
Correct.
Krista.
All right, and with that, our meeting is adjourned.
Get them the motion.
No. 7:50.
All right. I'm a really fast typist and I'm a good reader.
Ooh, well then, I like it.
Yeah, I worked for the Red Cross for my last 10